Hello and welcome back to the next part of my series of videos on Plex Media Server for your NAS. Today we're looking at the older generation versus the new. We're looking at the older generation of Synologies that featured that quad-core Intel J3455 CPU and comparing it against Plex performance on the newer generation, the ones that arrived with the J4125. And with that, the most interesting sentence I've ever said in my entire life: let's carry on. Now, I've tried to keep things as fair as possible. We're utilizing a 1019 here on the left-hand side of the screen, and that's the 1019, but this device only has two hard drives inside. We've made sure that we've only got two hard drives inside, and those two hard drives are what are supporting the system. However, what you'll also see is that the device itself has got an SSD inside. I've made sure that all of the Plex media we're using today is on an SSD. The SSD is 1.92 terabyte Seagate Ironwolf 110 NAS SSD, and that goes for both devices. Both of them have got an SSD volume where we've moved all of the Plex media we're going to use in today's video over to that directory. So that means that even though both of these devices are slightly different, they're both running the files, I should say, for today's video are both on SSDs. That means that removes any bottleneck in that sense. Also, although they've got different CPUs, both devices are utilizing 4 gig of memory, although the newer generation device is obviously utilizing DDR4 memory and the older generation device is using DDR3L. So they're both using 4 gig, they both got the quad core, we're both using the same ones, and there's a slight discrepancy between them. The newer device has been on for a few other things, so there might be a slight difference in memory utilization at the base level, but today's video we're going to look at Plex Media Server running on both of these devices, and we're going to do a little nod towards Video Station towards the end. But today we're going to look at these devices being utilized in real time. You can already see that the network activity on the 920 is a little higher, and that is relative, of course. You've got to look, that's 18 kilobits versus 141 kilobits at the moment, so obviously the graph is going to be scaled accordingly to the highest spike on it, but a lot of that is just because there's other activities that I've had to disable on this device, and it has been running for a great deal longer, and they're just other little bits where we've used it for other videos, so that will factor in. But ultimately the CPU utilization is near enough identical as is the memory. So let's scroll down a little bit there, and on this other screen we are using Plex. We've got Plex set up on both devices. On the right hand side of the screen there, we've got the 920 and the films tab, and on the left hand side of the screen we've got that 1019 film tabs there. So without further ado, let's play our first file. We're going to go the same routine we did for the previous videos. We're going to be running a 720p file first, 720p H.264 file, the matrix here, and we're going to play that on this laptop, start from the beginning. And if we like, we can try to run them simultaneously, but that may affect our GPU moving forward. So let's run both of these. And again, they're going to run simultaneously there. And the reason we're using a camera pointed at the screen there with both of those versions running together is simply because the GPU power required for this video is going to be tough enough as it is. So we can see how both of these devices are reacting to this. We could use Synology's own performance monitor here, but ultimately I do think their own performance monitor is going to be less specific for us. We'll be able to see a little bit more information, like Plex is utilizing 126 versus 127 megabytes across these two devices, and maybe we should try to make that a bit bigger. But focusing back on Plex, we can see near enough identical activity. So let's do some skipping around the files on both devices. So let's start skipping around and see how they both react to that. Skipping around back and forward, kind of fighting the buffering where possible. Let's do some skipping. They're still both playing relatively well there on the same screen together. And again, quite similar results. Even the spikes could, laid side to side would be near enough identical. So now let's do some transcoding. So we're looking at there, and now we're going to transcode these two files. First, we're going to upscale them. We're going to upscale them to just 4 megabits. So it's not a huge leap there. Going to scale them up to 4 megabits per second on both. And again, leave them running there between them, just letting them do their own thing. Lots of banter and chatting there happening on screen right now. And again, we're seeing you can largely ignore the top screen If we bring that down, the one you're going to care the most about is these two, CPU and memory utilization. So we flick back to the Synology one there. We just want to open that up just to make sure it doesn't time out on us. So let's exit there. And we can have a little look and see that memory utilization is still pretty much identical between the two of them. So let's move out of this file here. We'll move out of the 720p file, and this time we're going to move into a 1080p file. So this 1080p file is going to be that one. And again, we're going to move back. We'll go to the, again, exactly the same file. And look at that. We don't have the same file across both of them. That's embarrassing. There we go there. And we're going to get ready to play the file, 1080p H.264. So let's click play, click play. We'll let them both do their thing. We'll both leave both of them with the transcoding up and leave them running simultaneously. I think I did a pretty good job of getting those to play at exactly the same time across both of those NASs. And we'll leave that to do its own thing there. As we can see, both of them have got that network spike there as it's accessed the file. But largely, playback at a standard level here is near enough identical. So let's skip forward a little bit across both of them. It's a shame to ruin the synchronicity. Let's try and get as close as possible. And again, both playing a little bit dark there, I appreciate. We've got a few spikes there on network activity. Let's move along to later in the film. Both of them playing remarkably well there. If we do some skipping all the way through the files. Buffering's absolutely fine. And overall, we are seeing pretty good results on all fields there. So again, lots of stuff going on there. Fast forward, of course, we've had to mute the sound because of the rules, as you guys know full well. And now we're going to conduct some transcoding. So let's open up that option there and run the transcode at exactly the same time. This time we're going to downscale to 720p. So we might see some struggling. So let's do it. Let's see how both of them react to the 720p downscale from that 1080p file. We're moving to 4 megabits, so a higher megabits per second, but a lower resolution overall, running those two files there. And again, I'm sorry if the screen seems a little blurry, trying to get all of this screened in at the same time. Let's skip forward into 108. Should be relatively close. Bring those together. And again, skipping forward seems to be absolutely fine. We're seeing the slight bandwidth spikes as we flick between different parts of the movie and large chunks of data are being thrown around. And in the previous test, we did start to see difficulty once we scaled down to 480p. That's quite a big jump for this system to be doing and keeping up with. So I think it's only right we perform that exact same test here. We're going to conduct it now. We're flicking down to 480p. And this is where we last time saw the system start to have quite a problem, try to scale this kind of compression. Now, we've seen that the older generation, the 1019, has seemingly conducted that, but the frames per second has dropped quite dramatically there. And it has conducted that change, however, but the buffering is minuscule. We've barely got about more than 20 seconds worth of buffering there. But if we scale forward, we can take a look at how it's reacting. And moving forward to another section in the movie, we've tried to skip forward and it has seemingly worked. And a lot of that is due to that scaling down being such a hard job. But ultimately, the older generation NAS has seemingly won this round. So let's remove that and we'll make our way on now to the bigger files. These are going to be some of those larger dense test files. So again, we'll make our way over now to the 4K 1080p there of the 920 files. We'll switch the view because we want to be able to see the files in list form. And again, we'll do exactly the same thing here, 1019. We'll switch to library view and we've got our list view. Let's open that up a little bit. So we can see there, this is the 3 megabit file there at the top. So let's play that exact same file across both of these devices, playing them together. And again, we'll open it up, have a look and see how these two react. They do seemingly seem near enough identical without transcoding, with very little bump along the way. The first round with that 1080p file though did go to the 1019 there. But if we move forward, we can take a little look, we can do some buffering playing there, we can sort of knock around. The whole video file is indeed buffered, but let's scale to the beginning, and now let's conduct some transcoding. So let's pause the file. It is only 30 seconds, unfortunately, and then what we can do is choose what we're going to do to transcode. So let's transcode down to a 720p file, perhaps. Let's go there. So we're going to go with 720p across both of these devices. We're going to go for high. 1, 2, 3, go. And then we're going to click play on both to see how they react. Seemingly, the older generation NAS has reacted quicker, and the newer generation NAS has kicked us out. Now, a lot of this is to do with that business of the video coder and that driver that we talked about in other videos. And don't worry, this is the last time I'm going to allude to it in a video without doing it. I will be showing you how to do that, hopefully in the next video, if not the video after. But if we exit this transcode here, and we'll make our way into some denser stuff. So now we're going to go with an H.265 file. So same thing, 3 megabit, but H.265. We're going to play back that file on both of these devices, and we'll see what they do. They're both automatically switching to conversion, but the older generation NAS is seemingly converting it better, as we're seeing there on the network. Now, just in case you're thinking this is because the other one played first, let's play that other file on its own. So this is without the other device playing that file. And it's already hanging there. It is having difficulty. And if we look here on the screen at the resource monitor, we can see that the resource monitor there is pushing something through. But if we look at the buffering, it's nearly completely buffered. We're up to 28 seconds buffered, but it is really struggling with this file. We've not got it paused. It's just spinning there, the wheel in the middle of the screen, not really giving us the results we want. We can try to skip forward in the buffering, but again, not a vast amount that's happening there in real time. So next we'll move on to an H.265 10-bit file. So that one is there. We're going to play this file. Go ahead with the 10-bit version. This is a 10-bit file there, as you can see. We'll open that up, They're both going straight into conversion, but again, the older generation NAS has seemingly played that file better. And this is what we've been talking about with those 10-bit files. Now, it isn't the end of the world, it has to be said. There are moves to resolve this that I will talk about in another one, but just in a sheer vanilla state, the older generation is seemingly outperforming it. So now let's exit there and make our way into some denser materials. So now we're going to play 10-bit H.264. Open that up there. Running across both of them. And again, H.264, we're seeing no difficulties there playing back that H.264 file format. Both of them are doing a remarkably good job. And if anything, in H.264, the newer generation NAS is utilizing way less power to play back those files, both in terms of CPU utilization. Less so in memory. We are noticing memory peaking slightly, but that is the system overall. If we look at the utilization of Plex, 2.66 versus 2.7, there is a mite of difference between them. Now, what we're going to do is just look at the H.264 files just to test that theory. So now we're just going to play H.264 files for a short while just to see how it plays them. And as you can see, it does play them both remarkably well. It's doing a good job of both. It's playing back those files, and it is giving us what we would expect of that CPU. Let's move forward again. So let's come out of there, exit, and go to an even bigger H.264. This is 100 megabits per second H.264. As you can hear, that seagull above me is still going absolutely crazy. He's been an absolute bane for these production of videos, gotta tell you. But let's see how both of these devices fare this file. The J3455 NAS did seemingly play back a mite quicker. It did seem to play back that file a pinch quicker overall. Not a vast amount, but just enough to be barely noticeable there. And as we can see, it is playing back that file. So let's now get into the hard states. Now we're going to be moving into 4K. This is the 4K H.264 file. It is 4K UHD H.264 file format. Bring that up there. Let's see how they both fare on this file. See how we're doing there. And again, both of them are struggling with this file. Now, it's worth noting while we look at the performance monitor here on screen that we're seeing very similar results between the two of them in their utilization. Even the bandwidth spikes seem to be higher. There is an indication here from both of them that they are both trying to fight this file, but both of them have ultimately lost. So let's look at finally the 200 megabits per second H.264 file, just to end it on the H.264s before we move over to the monstrous H.265 stuff. And we'll carry on moving forward. But what we're seeing here would say that I think we've reached the threshold of what both of these NASs can give us in terms of H.264 and 4K on this device. So there, we're seeing buffering. They're both buffered up to about 4 seconds out of 30, but they're not. Neither one of them is really hitting higher than that. And I think we can call it a day on the H.264 playback front. So if we exit out of those, we can now try the H.265 stuff. Now this is where things are going to get a bit heavier going. We're going to go for the 10-bit stuff immediately. Oh, no, I've accidentally clicked the wrong NAS about one of the ones I'm working with in the background there. Let's go back to that screen. And now we can make our way back to that 30 megabit H.265 10-bit file. So this is quite heavy going. So we're going to go for that there and there. Open them up. Oh no, we're opening up H.265. We're doing the wrong one on the right screen there. Let's do this properly. Let's come out of that. Let's go for 30 megabit. Let's go for that HEV, wallet. Let's do that properly. So open those up. See how both systems react to this. They're both going directly into convert. And the newer generation NAS has seemingly played faster, but it was the first one to be clicked, but both of them I think are going to outpace the buffering long before they can finish. As we can see there, it is going to end. So let's pause them very quickly. Let's rewind them to the beginning. And this time we're going to let the conversion switch to automatic. What does Plex deem the best automatic option for both of these? So now we're going to let them restart, but see what they both recommend. And they're both pushing 143.6 megabits at 1080p on this file. But neither one of them are seemingly playing yet, so we're not exactly overwhelmed by the results we're seeing thus far. So I think we may have to give up the ghost on this file. We're still seeing that H.265 is still problematic in Plex on these devices. But both of them, it looks like it's going to kick us out. So let's make our way back, 1080p testing of both of them. And let's end on that biggest file format of the lot. Let's go for the 400 megabit nightmare file. This is H.265 4K UHD 10-bit 400 megabits. Neither one of these should play this file. They're both going to try to transcode, as we can see here on screen. But that's really all you're going to see. Even if we switch over to the performance monitor for Plex, we're seeing that quite a lot of memory is being utilized. I do think the task manager needs to update a little bit and refresh on the 920. But heading back into Plex, we are seeing very different results between these two. But nevertheless, neither one of them was able to play back that file. So what have we learned from Plex here? Well, we are certainly seeing that the H.265 support on the newer generation NAS is as we feared. It's not quite as good just within Plex. Now, as mentioned, I will be moving into a video on Video Station here, where we'll be running exactly the same tests. But because this video is overrun quite a bit, and I think it's coming close to 20 minutes, Some of my videos recently have been real long and you guys have been giving me a lot of feedback about that. So what I'm going to be doing is splitting this into a second video that should hopefully go live tomorrow. I'm going to split this into a second part with Diskstation. Hopefully I'll add a disclaimer in the earlier part where I did mention Diskstation, saying that it is going to be a separate video. But otherwise, I hope you guys have found this video helpful. I am going to be doing an overview of disabling the Plex video driver in favor of the default base level video driver that Diskstation has access to hopefully not the next video, but in the next week. I know I keep promising it, but I promise it's coming. And otherwise, you can always look on Reddit where there's a few guides knocking around already to tell you guys how to do it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I look forward to showing you the next part in this series with Diskstation. And otherwise, click like if you've enjoyed this, click subscribe to learn more, and I'll see you next time.